What's up, guys? Cobra Axis and Allies here, bringing to you another one of my custom-made expansion sets for Global 1936. As you can see here, we have Stalin's Mega Fleet. This is a pretty wacky expansion that I've made up, but it definitely has some historical significance. I got the idea when I was playing the Plan Z scheme for Germany, and kind of thinking, what kind of big did Russia have any big naval building strategies too for a mostly landlocked nation, kind of like Germany. They didn't have much use for a fleet, but I just thought it'd be cool to have an expansion like this to kind of, if they have the option in the 30s, they could build something like this and use this expansion. So as you can see here, I've got some graphics and everything, and I'll go into the background on this thing. So basically, in 1938, the General Secretary of the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin, called for a major fleet buildup under his third five-year plan. This was to include battleships, battlecruisers, light cruisers, destroyers, and long-range submarines. Despite strategic insight, the great helmsman remained a firm proponent of the battleship as the ultimate measure of naval power. So basically, Stalin was kind of a believer in the battleship and didn't really think that carriers would ever replace them. So the plan of 1938 was by far the most ambitious Russian naval order. Under the personal guidance of Stalin, the plan was to see the construction of the first fast battleships and battlecruisers after the London Naval Conference in 1936. In total, the ludicrous original plan called for 19 battleships, 20 cruisers, 18 light cruisers, 145 destroyers, 341 submersibles, 514 motor torpedo boats, and 44 river monitors. These figures were subsequently reduced in order to compensate for the lack of funds, and the classes were then standardized in view of simplifying their production. So as you can see, there was kind of a lot of thought that went into this scheme back in the day, even though it never really came to any serious fruition. But so we'll get into how you start this expansion set. So implementing the grand scheme. As the premier of the USSR, it is your mission to propagate worldwide communism. And what better way to spread the Book of Marx with a navy that could challenge even the British Empire? So a scheme is a set of changes that a player applies to the rules, and when you elect to use the Mega Fleet scheme, you will get a discount on certain ships, but will be required to spend money to complete them. So as you've heard, it's kind of like the Plan Z schemes. So first up, we have the 1936 scheme. Oops, sorry. Alright, so the 1936 scheme starts in 1936. A player may declare his purchase of the 36 scheme during his purchase units phase, and if he does, you deduct the cost from Russia's spendable IPCs. Now, how this would start before you start the game, so basically Russia would say that they want to implement this scheme. So it costs 8 IPP to start, so basically by implementing this scheme, Russia forfeits their first turn of income. So setup changes. Basically, place a minor shipyard in Perminsky Kara, which is right here, and that would represent Russian naval facilities being built there to support building ships if Russia decides to build ships there. You get to place 2 battleships in position 3 of the build chart, a light cruiser in position 2, and a Russian roundel on stage 1 improved construction. So basically, under this fleet scheme, you would take out 2 battleships, a light cruiser, and then place the light cruiser there on stage 2, and these 2 Soviet battleships in position 3. So as you can see there, if this gets completed, this is a pretty decent naval buildup you've got here with two capital ships and that light cruiser there. Plus, you get that extra technology for the future. But yeah, so basically, after this happens, each turn after 1936, the Russian player must spend 8 IPPs to advance the units into the production queue, or to spend available IPPs on submarines and destroyers. And leftover IPPs can be used to purchase other units. Once all the ships are built, Russia can refer back to the normal use of the IPPs. So basically, Russia can choose to either spend 8 IPP, which is their peacetime income. So say this is the original setup. They spend 8. They can move this into the production queue, and then that moves up. And then the next turn they could choose to spend 8 again, moving these guys up and completing them. So basically 3 turns of 8 IPCs would get you all of that. You can also choose to not progress those and instead buy either a sub, which you could complete in 1 turn because it costs $6, or you could buy 2 destroyers, which is you'd probably end up buying 1 and then the next turn buying another. So basically you could say bring the battleships up to stage 2, and then the next turn build a sub, and then the turn after that complete the battleships. It's all up to you. So next up, we've got January of 1938. So a player can declare his purchase of the 1938 Mega Fleet scheme during the purchase units phase, and if so, deduct Russia's spendable IPCs. So this scheme also costs 8 IPPs. So, construction setup. Place a Sovietsky Soyuz battleship in position 3, and I've got that right there. A light carrier and a heavy cruiser in position 3. Just grab that. Along with placing a Russian roundel in stage 2 improved construction and a completed heavy battleship technology for Russia. So as you can see here, we've got heavy cruiser and a light carrier going into position 3, and this massive Sovietsky Soyuz battleship. And you can see, I'll just grab another battleship for scale. This thing definitely is pretty huge. So, yeah, and I'll get into the stats for that later. So, we got the required expense. Like last time, Russia can spend 8 IPPs to either advance the units in the production queue or spend available IPP on submarines, which 2 are required, or destroyers, 1 is required. And like last time, you can spend leftover IPCs on other units. Now, I don't really have to go into, last time. You can just interchange, do you want to produce these guys or build smaller minor ships? But yeah, so that's the 1938 scheme. So let's get into the last scheme that I have. And all of these are based off of real life schemes that were actually started or almost started, depending on when the war was at. But lastly, we've got the 1943 scheme. So in January of 1943, a player can declare his purchase of the 1943 Mega Fleet scheme, and if so, deduct the cost from Russia's spendable IPP. So, what do you get in this one? So basically, hold on a second. All right, guys, I'm back. Just had to take a quick phone call. But so let's get into how we start the 1943 scheme. So this scheme costs 15 IPPs to start, and this happens at the start of the purchase phase. So the construction setup. Place the Sovietsky Soyuz battleship in position 3, the Type 72 fleet carrier, so that is this thing right here, in position 3, a battle cruiser in position 2, and a light cruiser in position 2. So let's grab those. So now we've got ourselves a battle cruiser and a light cruiser in position 2. and the Sovietsky Soyuz and the Type 72 fleet carrier in position 3. So place a Russian roundel on completed improved construction and one on completed heavy battleship production. So, and again, to reiterate, each turn after 1943, they can spend 12 IPPs to advance the units on the production queue, or spend any available IPPs on submarines. 2 are required, and destroyers 1 is required. And yeah, so basically this one's pretty strong. And also 1943, that's kind of maybe when the Allies could be kind of punching back at the Germans. So if Russia was still pretty powerful and able to retake Leningrad or Crimea, they could, or even upgrade their shipyard on the other side of the world. This scheme would be a pretty formidable fleet. So, also another thing is that if Russia was planning to maybe declare war on the Allies, this fleet would be a pretty formidable fleet also, if Russia were to build it, because just this battleship alone is 3 hits, and it has a pretty high stats. Along with the fleet carrier and the battle cruiser, you could definitely exert power across Europe, definitely in Scandinavia and the Baltic, and even trying to maybe invade London. Who knows? But yeah, so like the Plan Z schemes, there is a way of ending it. So a player can end the Mega Fleet scheme, and if he does, he must immediately scrap all units in production, removing them from the production queue, or pay 1 IPP per turn to maintain the ships in their current state. And if they choose the scrapping plan, they can get back 2 IPPs per capital ship and 1 for any other ship. So say, maybe you put this down, but then Germany strikes back, and you want to scrap these guys for money. You can just say you want to scrap them, and these capital ships will give you 2 apiece, and these non-capital ships will give you 1. So yeah, that's ending a fleet. So then just into some of the units in this, we've got the Sovietsky Soyuz. So this battleship was begun in the 1930s naval buildup as a counter to the German naval buildup. These ships were planned to have a displacement of over 6,500 or 1,000 long tons and were capable of 28 knots, so they were pretty fast. Their main armament was 15-inch guns supplemented by smaller universal turrets. So, as you can see here, we've got a really high attack and defense of 10, like a heavy battleship, and it moves 3, and costs 777, so kind of like a normal heavy battleship. So it requires the heavy battleship technology, and it's available in 1937, and it counts as a fast battleship. It also takes 3 hits to sink, and on this page here, each hit gives the ship -1 attack, defense, and shore bombardment. And it has a shore bombardment of 5. So overall, a really powerful ship, and to get it for a really high discount in this naval scheme is pretty cool. Next up, we've got the Project 72 fleet carrier. So at 812 feet long, it was comparable to an American Essex class. To place 29,000 tons, and she drew heavily on the German Graf Zeppelin design, and like the German Graf Zeppelin, she had a very small air group for her size, which was only 60 aircraft on a pretty much Essex-sized ship, which could have hundreds almost. So this is pretty much just a standard fleet carrier. So it has no attack, defends at 2, moves 3. So kind of like it's basically kind of like a fast fleet carrier. Costs 555. So it's a capital ship taking 2 hits to sink. So yeah, overall pretty nice. And then we've got some optional rules last up. So robust armor. All Russian ships constructed using the Mega Fleet scheme negate first strike attacks and may fire 1 defense shot if chosen as a casualty during first strike, before being taken as a casualty. So basically, This means that, like, if a sub, say, hit a destroyer in its first strike, the destroyer would get a defense shot against an enemy fleet that was attacking. Then we have one last one, reduced air group. Only one fighter or one tactical bomber can land on the Project 72 fleet carrier. So basically, even though this thing was a capital ship, and in this game I give it a limit of 2 aircraft like normal. If you want to be a little more realistic with that optional rule, you can only land 1 aircraft on this thing. So yeah, overall I hope you guys enjoyed the Mega Fleet scheme, and I will have a link in the description for downloading the rules. And even for the pieces, like the 72 fleet carrier, I just used a normal, it's just a Russian carrier that came with a Global 40. And for the heavy battleship, the Sovietsky Soyuz, I just I cut down and kind of shaped a Yamato class to look like the Sovietsky Soyuz, and I think it came out pretty well. But overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this quick look at this video, and I hope that maybe next game I show you guys this fleet will be put to some use. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed Stalin's Mega Fleet. Cobra, out.